I never got a chance to meet you, but I was at that IFA convention back in 2005 when you won the Entrepreneur of the Year award. So it is my pleasure to have you on. I can't wait to talk franchising with you. I know there's a lot of emerging franchise founders that watch the podcast, listen to it, and be curious to get insights on really what it takes to build a couple of monster brands, such as yourself and you guys did with Jackson Hewitt and Liberty Tax Service.
That'll be great. And one thing that's interesting is most franchisors fail. To be in the top 50% of all franchisors in the United States, you only need 20 locations. So I think it's you're doing a great thing to try to help people break that barrier and become successful.
Thank you. I'm having a blast doing this. And truthfully, when I look back, when I founded my company, I thought back over those 20 years of what was the most fun, exciting time for me. It was that emerging period. And it might have been really scary, but it was also exhilarating. So I thought we can maybe glean some of that experience that we've had. And certainly, you've been around in franchising a lot longer than I have and created some, again, monster brands. And now you're the founder of Loyalty Brands. I believe you said you have 8 companies underneath that umbrella. So a lot to cover here. So John, I'm curious, then what do you think, why do so many franchisors fail if it only takes 20 to be successful in such a rare find?
Frank, what I've learned is, first I'll tell you the nitty gritty, and then I'll tell you the big picture.
Okay.
Because the big picture is so simple. But the nitty gritty is we've negotiated with about 30 or 40 brands to merge and help them. And what I've learned is that someone typically that starts a franchise organization has a successful mom and pop, and then their friends and they get the idea, let's expand this. Franchising is a great idea. And so they get into franchise. Well, there's a couple problems. One is they need the revenue to live on from the mom and pop. And so they need to keep working in the mom and pop. So they don't have full time to work at the franchise company. And secondly, they're not even good at it. It takes a different skill set to run a franchise brand rather than an all company owned brand. You need to treat franchisees different than you need to treat employees. And that's an art. It's not a science, it's an art. And so they don't have full time to do it. They're not good at it anyway. As a result, they just mutter along and they get interest and they get people excited, but the people all fall out because they don't really have a system. So that's kind of the nitty gritty. The big picture, though, is this, that what most franchisors don't learn is that there's one easy secret to founding a great franchise brand. And I'm the only person that's founded 2 of the top 100 franchise brands in the world. So the key thing is simply this: happy, successful franchisees. And most franchisors are built happy, successful franchisor. And so they do not understand this simple fact that if the franchisees prosper and they're happy, then you can't stop your growth. You're going to grow exponentially. But the minute that you start taking their profits and their joy out of the journey, you've lost. And so most franchisors fail simply because they do not understand this basic concept: happy, successful franchisees.
We always talk at the conferences about, unit economics. It's about profitability of the franchisees. There's nothing more important. What really goes side by side with that is that franchisees have to have hope, especially when they're starting out, because nobody's profitable when they're starting out, right? Where our job is to inspire them. They need to believe in the dream.
Yeah, speaking of believing in the dream, the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid, people used to say, when I had a successful franchise, they said, yeah, that's because they drank the Kool-Aid. And I used to feel bad about that.
Right.
And then I realized that that's the only ones that are going to be massively successful, is those that believe and those that follow the system as close as they can, 98, 99, 100%. The people that don't listen, that haven't drank the Kool-Aid, they're going to fail, because that's what you get when you get a franchise system. When you get a great part of a great franchise system, you get a proven successful system. You got to copy that. If you don't buy into it, you're going to fail.
How long did it take you in your career to figure out whether you were picking the right franchisee or not? And what were some of the criteria that you figured out was like they had to have this, and, or you knew they were not the right ones?
Well, I have 6 children, 11 grandchildren, 3 great grandchildren. And to me, franchisees are like children. And my job is to give them the best system in the industry. And I've been doing that for 54 years. Wherever I was, whether I was at H&R Block, they had the best system. When I was at Jackson Hewitt, they had the best system. At Liberty, they had the best system. And now Loyalty Brands and ATAX has the best system. So I'm going to give you the best system. Your job isn't, I don't really care how smart you are. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how educated you are. I don't care how experienced you are. Your job is to pay attention to what I tell you. I've been doing this for 54 years. I fondly call myself the great grandfather of income tax. And you better pay attention, because if you come in thinking you're going to know better than John Hewitt about income tax, you're an idiot or stupid, right? You're never going to know as much as I do. Most of my people aren't 54 years old.
Right.
53 years ago, I was running 10 H&R Block offices, and 43 years ago, I was running 250. So I'm incredibly experienced. You got to pay attention. And so I learned, and here's the way I learned it. When we were thinking of growing Jackson Hewitt, my first independent brand, we started in Virginia Beach, and we said, aha, we'll be really smart. We'll go geographic. We'll go to Richmond, and then DC, and then Baltimore, and then Philadelphia, and going south, we'll go to Raleigh, Durham, and Charlotte, and really smart strategically. And then people began approaching me from all over the country. And what I learned, Frank, is that I could put someone, the only office I put in the state of Louisiana, in the middle of nowhere, way up north by Arkansas, Monroe, Louisiana. We put in 100 offices that year. Here's the #1 office in the country.
Wow.
So it didn't matter geographic, it mattered the people. And it all came down to following the system. So in order to get people to follow the system, we changed. And in order for you to get a franchise, you had to come and spend a week with us at training. You didn't get your franchise until you spent that week with the group. Because if I saw at any point in the week that you weren't going to listen, if you raised your hand and said, I'm not going to do that, then we wouldn't let you have a franchise. Because when a franchisee fails, they can only blame 2 people, themselves or me. And they always blame me first. So I don't want to bother with that, right? I brought in 5,200 franchisees. The vast majority have been successful. Some haven't. The only difference between winning and losing is how much you follow the system.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to a franchisor that says, John, I love that idea, but gosh, if I train them for an entire week and then they don't sign the franchise agreement and compete with me, I just wasted my time and I brought a competitor on?
Well, first of all, if they don't sign the agreement and they're not going to listen, they're no competition. I've given people their money back in the past and said, you know what? I'm not even going to force you to honor your non-compete. You're no competition. People have said to me in the past, you're very free with your business knowledge and your business advice. Aren't you worried that your competitor is going to copy you? And I said, my own franchisees don't listen. I don't worry about my competitor listening. Out of the 5,200 franchisees I brought in, not one, zero, zippity-doo-dah, have listened to me 100%. No one listens. This isn't hard. It's very basic. We tell you that on February 2nd, it's going to be a busy day. So you need to adjust your hours. Instead of being open at 9 a.m., you need to open at 7 a.m. I mean, it's very clear-cut, objective, easy to understand. And 50% of our franchisees won't listen to that.
And that's, of course, a huge problem in franchising. Of course, if we have franchisees that don't listen, they're not going to accomplish their goals. It's going to, of course, reflect bad on us. Validation's going to suffer. They're going to suffer. It's just accumulation of a problem. How do you think a franchisor can better position themselves to get franchisees to listen?
The ideal thing, again, a long time ago, I learned that the franchisees believe each other more than me. So if I'm in a group, let's say I'm talking to 2 first-year franchisees, just completed their first year, and me, I will watch one of them ask the other one a question as if I wasn't there, as if I didn't know better than both of them combined, and that they'll ever know. It's like children against parents, right?
Right.
Children bond against parents, adults. Children bond against adults. franchisees bond against franchisors. So what we learned a long time ago is your biggest partners are your great franchisees. And so you ask your great franchisees to give testimonials. Now, it makes them feel better. It makes them feel recognized, and they believe themselves because they're spewing what they did. And so other franchisees buy in. If I can't get a franchisee to say part of our system works, then very few are going to listen. So I have to find the leaders, the best producers, and people they love the attention. We're going to have, look who we have here, right? John Smith, he's number one in the country. He's fastest growing. He doubled. And so you hype him up and then he answers questions. And then all year long, they might call him for advice. So you herald your superstars to help you. And 95% of superstars, they love it. They love being held up. So we had groups, when we had 2,000 franchisees at Liberty, we had the Elite 18. We had a number of different categories of groups so when you came to convention, the Elite 18 they would all have a ribbon. And so there was about 3 or 4 master groups that we had our master franchises. And so they loved that. And it really told the story far better than I could, because even with my experience, they will not listen to me. Do you have children?
Yes, I have 2 kids, 25 and 22 years old.
They don't always listen, do they?
No, they don't.
Exactly. They wish they would have sometimes.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.